You are not hearable.
I think because I was rushing a little bit, I forgot to make sure I was working. But greetings, welcome to Discussing Tabletop.
You don't want to do the thing where you restart? Okay.
It was 3 seconds. It's not that long. Like, if it was a little longer, maybe, but... I think what it was is... so greetings, everybody. Yes, it's April 19th. We are starting a little earlier than normal, just because people needed some schedules, and
my family is celebrating Easter tonight instead of tomorrow because my brother has to leave on a business trip tomorrow.
Yeah, it's fine.
So,
it makes sense.
Yep.
But
yep.
It just ended up on my end. I had to rush a little bit. So I think I just forgot to reset things when I plugged everything in and got the call with you. Now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
I know. I'm just explaining also why we're early.
Yep. Me being foolish. Don't worry about it. We got a couple of topics today. It's not going to be a particularly long one, I don't think. Just a few things to talk about. Some good, some bad. You know, it's the usual things of the week. And then we got an interesting, deeper discussion topic that I thought to discuss a little bit because it's something I was attempting on Wednesday, and my way of doing things is not the only way we can discuss that concept, which would be alternate types of dungeons. So hopefully you'll all enjoy that. Anyway,
that's an interesting topic. I have a lot of opinions. Anyway,
hey, alternate dungeons are definitely a thing that you can do in a lot of different ways, but I think it's sort of like it's the concept of like you do something other than a traditional exploration dungeon, you know?
Yeah.
Which I've definitely seen other people experiment in lots of ways. So it's a good topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I guess let's just dive into our first topic today. So I'm just going to pick this button here and say, let's talk a little bit about D&D for a moment. Let me get these links.
Yep.
So the first thing is first.
When I saw this on the docket, I actually found it on my own because I was curious to read through it.
So we can start with the SRD 5.2. This is something that was promised a while ago, basically when they came out with 5.5, etc. Because they threw 5.1 into Creative Commons. This is 5.2 into Creative Commons. So it's basically the essence of what makes up 2024 core rules will be in Creative Commons. Yeah. It's good. It's kind of where things were kind of forced to be with what they did. But also, like, it did take them a while. Okay, you know, they still did it, though. I'm still going to be curious as to everything that does end up in SRD 5.2. You know, it is the fine line of, like, the details in the SRDs make a difference about what you can use and what you can't use. Especially if you're publishing something on your own. So
yeah.
So this is good. I think it's very good. It'll be helpful for those people that still want to publish under 2024 or D&D. Give some more information for that. So, positive.
Yeah, and they said they were going to do this.
Yeah. Again, I'd seen someone, like, maybe like a month ago talking about how, like, they were hoping it would have come out sooner, but at least they're still doing it. I think that's the big thing is, even though it did take them a while after they got everything published, that's fine. I'm guessing what they wanted to do was make sure there were no mistakes, because the 5.1 had a few things in it that were, like, sounded like they probably didn't want it in there, you know. Little mistakes like that could mean something could be used in someone else's publishing, putting it in Creative Commons. So, but that's not the only thing we have here. We also got the first big errata from the 2024 launch, and also we're getting the return of Sage Advice, which is interesting because the Sage Advice part of it. Just talk about that for a moment. That's Jeremy Crawford, who's leaving. So who's taking over? I'm curious. I mean, if it does the same thing of answering questions on the rules, I think it's fine. But I'm curious as to, you know, they don't have a public face anymore. And I think that's the thing that I don't know if we're going to see a nice public face of D&D in the near future.
Mm.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was good D&D had that. Now will we have that? Anyway, just to talk about the errata a little bit. It's errata. I mean, I think that's the easiest way to start talking about it, but I think the big things that we can mention here are a bunch of spells got errata.
The biggest one is the polymorphs, which was clearly an exploit that people have brought up, where if you cast polymorph then immediately end it, the people keep the temporary hit points. Mm-hmm. That's no longer the case.
Also, some of the conjure ones that had some, they've really had some abuses to them. They also got nerfed.
Yeah, the ones that the ones with scaling level stuff, they got nerfed. Basically. Yeah.
I was thinking about this earlier today when I was like reading. I didn't go through everything,
but the rest got nerfed.
Yeah. Stat blocks that were in the player's handbook are now the monster manual ones. They did do some stuff from D&G. Monster manual got some fixes. Those always make sense, you know. But I think looking back at the spells and stuff like that, it's this kind of juxtaposition that it's very good they fixed these, because they were exploits, but it's also that kind of thing I'm like, there are issues that still exist that you could probably errata without having major republishings that are things that really could use buffs. And I don't know if they're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the... I think you're thinking of a lot of the stuff that they did with the classes that... I feel like almost every class was 2 step forward, 1 step back. At least, you know?
I agree. There was a lot of really cool things. And there are some classes that feel like, Like, I think like, you know, Ranger's always been poor. They didn't fix it. It still feels kind of poor, you know? Oh yeah, we have that thing called a Ranger over there. Maybe we should do something with it? It's fine how it is, you know? Which was sad.
I actually saw a really good, basically just you have to, like, add in 2 features as a homebrew, and then it, like, fixes the Ranger entirely.
Yeah, this is stuff that people were doing beforehand, so it's sort of like, we still haven't
but the new Ranger, I'm talking about but for the new Ranger, it basically is like these, basically one of them is at level, like, 9, I think it was. They basically get the ability to use Hunter's Mark without concentration. You know. And then I think they moved another thing backwards. Yeah, so it's like, the idea just being that, like, at this point, you're now opened up to be able to use a lot of your higher level spells that have concentration and still use all your features that use Hunter's Mark.
Yeah. Again, I think it comes down to erratas are always good. They're always fixing things. I'm glad we're gonna get a bunch of them out now. We're keeping up with stuff. I'm just hoping, you know, and again, closing some doors on some exploits is good.
What's interesting is this this does not remove. They did not remove the thing where true seeing can see people who are hidden. With that said,
they did change how hide worked, though.
But but you have the invisible condition. They changed. You have the invisible condition too. You have the invisible condition while hidden.
Yeah. And from the conditions ends on you to you stop being hidden. So it's basically like, I'm no longer hidden. I'm no longer. So you're not physically invisible. You're just invisible to target. However, it makes more sense.
However, the invisible condition still sees creatures who have the invisible condition. Now, with that said, something I realized by playing 2E, true seeing allows you to see people who are concealed and hiding in 2E. True seeing does. So I think that might actually have been intentional and are step back to their roots, in a way.
Might be. Very, very well might be. Interesting.
Yeah. So that was something that I was like, when I was reading See Invisibility, I'm like, you know what? That is useful. Yep. Or that actually makes this make a lot more sense.
Yeah. So it's kind of like we got some big stuff in the kind of D&D sphere that's honestly okay. You know? Honestly.
Mm-hmm. It's a step in the right direction, even though they took several in the wrong direction, but at least there's another one in the right one.
You know, they gotta go somewhere.
Yep.
So
I've kind of been going around in a circle, to be honest.
they've been just kind of like circling a drain, and I think they've begun to like try to swim out of that drain. They're like, oh wait, this is a drain. We should probably not swim towards it. Fight the current. Just saying. So, our next topic, of course, we want to talk about here is the fact that we have information on how Paizo's going to be structuring their Starfinderr Society for 2nd edition. If you don't know about the Society things, these are the organized play for Pathfinder and Starfinder. You know, it's good to know how they're evolving their organized play for 2nd edition Starfinder now. So it's just a basic. They've rolled out, hey, it's coming up soon. If you do organized play, here's how we're going to be doing it for 2nd edition. So yeah, made to be 2 to 3 hours per scenario for 4 to 6 players within 2 level ranges. I'm guessing like four players would be the low level range, 4 players would be the high level range, 6 players would be low level range. I'm guessing. You know, we're sort of like in between there. It kind of gives you the idea. Number of players gives you what level they should be. Usually. But yeah, it's got the basic information, presentation levels, all those kind of things. So we got the update on it. Hey, you know, I think I have used something from one of these organized playbooks once. Though I ended up with a few of them. So they're interesting for information, and they do provide, like, you know, lore settings, stuff like that. So, yeah. I think one of the locations that was eventually talked about in the Impossible Lands book was introduced in a, like, Pathfinder or Society book. So, it's kind of things like that is some of that kind of lore, information, stuff like that is introduced in these things, too. So, they have multiple uses. So, yeah. I don't know if there's much else to say about that other than, hey, we've got the information to organize play. And they do have a timeline for what they're going to be doing stuff, schedule. So, yeah. Alright, hey, it's a video game, right? Heroes of Might and Magic is a video game. I'm 95%
Might and Magic
sure.
is a video game. I've played it before. Yes,
So,
you know, there's different versions. The one I played was Heroes of Might and Magic, was slightly different, but yeah.
Yeah, but so Heroes of Might and Magic I guess has an RPG, because I haven't seen this on Modifia's site, but they put the free quick start for it up. So a 62-page quick start. I'm guessing that we'll get the full thing soon. Let me see.
Oh yeah, it's Heroes of Might and Magic, which is a slightly different version of Might and Magic.
I'm gonna see about the Hero RPG. Is this any
I only played like one of the Heroes of Might and Magic games. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, they got the quick start.
I wouldn't call it a well-made game though. Honestly.
Oh. Okay, so quickly looking this up, and I just love that when I went to I'll link this here because this is the Heroes of Might and Magic thing here. Just because I was able to find more on it. I just wanted to talk about the quick start because I thought it was neat, but there was more here. They're going to be doing a Kickstarter. They're doing a 2D20 version of it, and I love how Ubisoft has this up the top corner because I'm guessing they own.
They do.
Entire thing.
They own the Might and Magic brand. Yeah. It explains. Then now I remember why I've only ever played one because and why it also wasn't that great of a game.
Because I would like to know the history of that, because probably Ubisoft didn't have it the entire time, because it is the Might and Magic series is a long-winded one, as far as I know.
It is. It's very old.
Mm-hmm. But
Let's see.
Anyway, just start checking out this. They do it the Kickstarter.
They acquired it in 2023, or sorry, not 2023, 2003.
Okay. So they're doing the first 3 games world setting, which is Anorath. The Kickstarter's starting on the 6th. So for now, if you wanted to check out and get an idea of what the game is for their version of a fantasy 2D20 system from Modiphius, they've got the Quick Start available. And yeah, it's your legendary heroes. It's the same, a story for a lot of fantasy games. So I'm not gonna lie, it's not a lot, but still nonetheless.
Yeah.
Ready to play heroes, a scenario, the rules. Again, it's one of those things that's probably like, know your 2D20 systems before grabbing this one. I think we talked about this the other week with like some of the other ones Modiphius puts out. Is they almost half assume that you're going to be familiar with 2D20 systems because it's what they run. With a lot of their quick starts. So it is a disadvantage sometimes for that. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to know that this series is getting an art.
Oh my god. Yeah, that explains it. Okay, I'm like, okay, so I didn't play. So I played. The one game I played apparently wasn't Heroes of Might and Magic like I thought it was. What I played was Might and Magic X Legacy, which is the most recent. Which actually happens to be the most recent Might and Magic video game. Which came out in 2014.
Yeah, Legacy. Because Heroes is a spin-off there's a lot of other spin-offs.
Heroes, I think they're all supposed to be set in the same world, though.
Yeah.
Heroes had one in 2025, but before that, 2015.
Is the 2025 one out? Golden Order? Because we're 2025 now. Let me take a look here.
Yeah, release summer 2025. Okay.
So coming out soon as a turn-based strategy game published by Ubisoft.
I think that's literally going to be the first Might and Magic game in literally 10 years.
And if they acquired it, if Might and Magic / Heroes was accompanied by, not acquired by Ubisoft more recently,
they've made like a dozen games since they acquired it. They just haven't made one in 10 years.
So they acquired it, made a few things. It's just been a long time, especially like the Heroes series hasn't had a lot one. Heroes series had a lot of them also.
Yeah, Hero series was a very popular spin-off one, and it was more just, as far as I'm aware, about like individuals, whereas like Might and Magic was more like the general adventurer kind of thing, I think.
Yeah.
Nameless adventure, whereas like I think you actually had a character with a name in Heroes, and I liked Might and Magic X Legacy enough to look into the rest of the games, although I never played more of them. Primarily because they were Ubisoft, and it just honestly their freaking third party, they're not third party, their like whole software thing just never worked right. Also, the game was like super buggy, which is why I was just like, okay.
I'd be interested to see like how the newer one would be, but again, it's like one of those ones that might not be a type of game that I'm for.
Well, given how Ubisoft is doing right now, I mean, have you seen their stock prices?
No, I have not. Bad? Good? Yes.
I mean, I was.
Oh. Yes. Gotcha. I could not see you. I had something up over top of you, so that's why.
Got
it. Yeah.
Okay.
I
was doing a visual gag.
Yes, you were doing a visual gag, and I had to be. Oh, I had to realize you were doing the visual gag to go back to Discord, because again, it's the. I really could use a third monitor, so I can like have Discord open on its own.
Sorry about that.
It's fine. It's just the visual gag became an extra layer of gag on top of it.
Yep. Yeah, so Might and Magic Warrior. Yeah, so basically the only really two, like, I mean, it shows like if you look at the Wikipedia, it shows like several spin-offs, but realistically, there's only, as far as I can tell, two. The others are just like one-offs, just like a single game. That calls them spin-offs, but they're just kind of unique within the same world.
Gotcha.
But basically, the two series are Might and Magic and Might and Magic, or Heroes of Might and Magic.
Gotcha.
Then they had apparently a bunch of books that I didn't know. I didn't know they had those.
So it's interesting to see that we have the TTRPG spin-off. And it's spinning off of Heroes, even though Heroes and, well, I guess because they're continuing the Heroes series rather than the original Might and Magic series. Even though, like, I'm not gonna lie, since the main series, the last time was in 2014, and the last time for Heroes was 2015, they could do both of them. Yes, they're doing the sequel now for Heroes, but I guess that's why they're just doing that as the Kickstarter. I don't know. It's an interesting thing just doing the spin-off one for your TTRPG rather than just the one. But I guess maybe because, as you said, that focuses more on like legendary figures, that fits a little better with the TTRPG flavor.
Yeah. From what I remember, like I said, the last time I played it was probably in like 2015. I didn't find it right away, but I know it was close to that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's like, I'll remember, I was almost 10 years ago.
Yep. Long time. So if you're interested in checking out and seeing if you'd be interested in this, the quick start's available now over on Modiphies' website. I have linked it. But you can also check out their Kickstarter when it comes up, if you find it like what you see, and you're an old fan of it.
Yeah.
As for me, this is a series I know about, but I never got into. So it's sort of like, yeah, this seems neat. You know, that's cool. We're getting kind of out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to play some more ones, but then I'm like, oh wait, the last Might and Magic. You know, the last Might and Magic was, you know, I think before the 2014, yeah, it was 2022. So Might and Magic, they actually did only release one. They did a lot more with Might and Magic Heroes. They did 3 games with Might and Magic Heroes, 1 game with Might and Magic, and they did a few, is that it? That might be it.
Man.
They only made 4 games, so Ubisoft may have only made like 4 games.
It does seem like they didn't do a lot of games in the series. They did a couple other spin-offs I was reading before I closed that.
There was a Might and Magic Heroes Online. I don't know if that went anywhere. Did that get cut or something?
The answer is probably
Released.
Yes.
It was released in 2014 and closed in 2020.
Well, that's a little longer than we thought. That's not a 6-year cycle. It's not your bad for like an online, maybe MMOE or something similar kind of game.
Yeah, like an MMO.
Yeah.
And then they Might and Magic, and then they did a few spin-offs like Might and Magic Elemental Guardians, Might and Magic Heroes Era Chaos, Might and Magic Chess Royale, really, Might and Magic Armies. So those are all recent. Elemental Guardians was 2018, Era of Chaos was 2019, Chess Royale was 2020, and Might and Magic Armies was 2022. But yeah, they really have not done. And then there's a Might and Magic card game that was released in 2025, and a bunch of novels. That many, honestly. There's like not that many actually.
So it's pretty neat. You know, if you're an old fan, hey, maybe this is something that you get into it without. Because again, I don't know the different eras, and it's also like one of those things. Is being an older series, the classic games, their mechanics and how they're playable, it's sometimes a crapshoot as to how pick up and play it is, and how much of a hassle it is. You know,
it's from what I understand, the Might and Magic Heroes broke away from like the Might and Magic style. Might and Magic almost had a style, which if you've ever seen Legends of Grimrock,
I know the name, but I haven't seen it.
Okay, I'm trying to think. It's basically like almost like you're a party on a grid, and you move on the grid, but you have a party. The position matters. Each party has different. Each party member has different stuff. It's
I played some games like that. I have played some games like that, so I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that's the style of Might and Magic from what I remember, which is why I looked into playing more. Problem is they were just kind of bad. Like Grimrock did a good job with like updating the genre, but it's still not a lot of people use it. That's why I like Grimrock. That's what got me looking into that was Legend of Grimrock. I wanted to play more games like that, and Might and Magic Heroes was one.
Yeah. So.
Or Might and Magic Legacy. Did I say Heroes? Anyway.
Check it out if you're interested. So, moving right along, we can talk a little briefly about this one here. I don't normally talk about these weird, I couldn't say weird, these very simple articles from Modiphius that kind of like deal with things like Star Trek, Fallout, and all their other systems that they're kind of running. But this one actually was really interesting because this is something that I was thinking about, that it gives a good list of all the ridiculous amount of science kind of labs there are, but it's also a lot of fields of science for Star Trek that, I'm not going to lie, you sometimes need to know about, but, like, I don't think I remember seeing a place with a list like this in any of the books. Where, like, lists, like, all these type of fields, which are kind of very interesting. Like...
You've never considered cetacean ops? Come on.
No! I haven't! I think that's the thing, is, like, I have not, like, some of these, like, yeah, they make sense. But it's such an interesting list, because, again, it's, like, one of those things, is, like, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, if there was a list like this, it just flew over my head in one of the books. Now, it could be in the second edition books, because I haven't, like, I really should dive into it for, like, because May the 4th is coming up, and I should probably plan that, and it's a couple of weeks away, actually, now, because we're at the 19th of April. Oh, wait. And I was waiting to look into the book when then. Never mind. I guess that's something I should be doing soon. Maybe there's a better list like this in there. Or like the technical book, which just was coming out.
Honestly, I've seen a list like this, but not in anything Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. I think I have too. But I'm, like, very glad to see it. I'm like, wow.
I mean, I literally bookmarked it because I'm like, you know what? This is actually neat. I have to, like, see if I've seen something similar.
Again, it's like one of those things, is like, I think it's because it is technically not the main focus, but it's incredibly important to it. It's science. Again, because the depths of a Star Trek game tends to be an exploration game, science and exploration kind of go hand in hand a lot of times.
Yep.
So,
yeah,
it's like one of those, like, obvious things, but it's also one of those things I'm like, wow, I just, really needed to, like, think about, like, it a little bit more and see it in front of my face almost. And again, I could have missed this in one of the books. I haven't. Like the original core book.
Supplemental book. Might go into depth in one of these, but yeah.
The only book that I, like, really went into depths on was the original core book. I kind of, like, used the other books from first edition when I needed them, because I have a bunch of those PDFs from Humble, thank you. And I do physically own the core book, the original, but now I have to look at the second edition. Maybe it's in there, the second edition book, I'm not sure, but I do think it was a good article. I saw it and I'm like, man, I kind of have to shout it out, because even if this one's not what you need, Modiphius does a lot of these little articles like this when it comes to things for Fallout and Star Trek, so it's something to keep in mind. For a lot of in their, like, little blog, they'll talk about stuff like this that can help, solidify, expand upon stuff they're publishing. So,
yeah.
Putting out. But anyway. Alright, well, we couldn't avoid talking about it forever because it has had some effects already. Let's talk tariffs again.
Oh.
Unfortunately,
yeah.
We have to start with this one, and there's already been an after effect. And this might not be the last, but Greater Than Games, the company which I've heard about before, is gone. It's a sub company to a larger one, and I can leave the Facebook post that also the person that was in charge of it left. I hope that links correctly. It is also linked in that article, the Facebook from Daryl Lauder. So River Flat Group, I guess, is the top group that owns, like, some subgroups like Greater Than Games. And because I guess it became too expensive for them to publish their, like, board games. Yeah.
Because probably they make everything over in China. I mean,
yeah.
it's very common.
This article does talk about how, like, we don't know what's going to happen with the results of their Kickstarter. Because, they had a Kickstarter that was going to be fulfilled a little later this year. That was for their Sentinels of the Multiverse game. Which, I guess, shipping prices might skyrocket for those people that got the Kickstarter.
Yeah, I'm like thinking, I feel like this doesn't... I'm not sure this actually affects shipping in that sense.
Well, what I mean is, because they have to increase the price of the country, they might, in turn, the way to reflect that without losing money from the original top parent company might be to do that, to just charge more on shipping.
Yeah. I'm not sure you're supposed to be able to do that. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, no. The Trump, the whole tariff war is dumb, and like, it's funny because like I actually do think we need to increase tariffs and stuff because I feel like it's important to put pressure on certain countries, but these blanket tariffs are actually a really bad idea, where everything goes up.
Tariffs are best used as a scalpel, put in places that make sense thematically to help encourage growth and stuff like that. Blanket tariffs are a terrible idea, and last time we had stuff like that, it made the Depression into a Great Depression. So, goes to tell you if you know your history.
And now it's just making an economic increase into a depression, so.
Yeah. I don't think we'll get the Great Depression, because that had other compounding issues that led us to the double whammy of both of those things. But it's still gonna suck.
Yep. Yeah, this is and it's like, you know, what's interesting is like, so, I mean, I find it interesting that they've disbanded because nothing's even in place yet. Like, okay, as someone who works in a company that's actually being affected by tariffs and, you know, doing accounting and stuff,
the stuff for China went in place.
What? Oh, it actually went into place?
In the China one. That was the only one that wasn't suspended.
Okay.
So I'm guessing if they're shipping from China, they're getting hit by it right away.
Yeah, but like that's the thing. I think it's like increased it several times, and I don't think all of them have gone into place. I don't know what it currently sits at, but
it was theoretically somewhere around like 150% or something tariffs.
Yeah, 145 was the last theoretical that I heard.
It's something.
The original tariff was like
number,
85.
I'm sorry,
which is still ridiculous.
These numbers are so ridiculous, though, too. I'm like, what? That is a ridiculous number. I'm sorry. It really, really is. You know, it's so
point
high.
Of it, the point of it is to basically make it, the whole point of tariffs in general is to encourage businesses to start up in America, which is why this like no warning tariff is also a bad idea. Because it doesn't give people time to adapt and change tack.
I think someone said it best, which was a very good thing because we have the Switch 2 coming in. And someone asked, what would Nintendo have to do to domestically make the Switch 2 in America? How much would it cost to put all the factories together? And someone gave a blanket answer of, it would probably cost around $10 billion. Because it's not just making the thing, it's the entire network of all the little parts and all that kind of stuff. So it would cost you have to not only to make the factory, but the factory makes some microchips. You have the factory that makes this part, that makes that part, this part, you know. It's an entire network. And even those things network down, you know. And then you also get the shipping of where you're getting the material from, you know. It's the problem is we have these, like, decades-long things we've already built that were supply chains that we already built that are being disrupted by this. Like, decades of work.
So yeah, that's a big thing. Blanket tariffs don't cover what is a very important factor, and that is source material. You can't buy like not every resource is available in America. So it's
cough, cough, rare earth metals, cough, cough.
Actually, rare earth metals are available in America. They're just purchased in. We're just not mining them because they're way cheaper to import from China because China has no no hazard safety.
I think those went up they've gone up like at least double the price now from them. It's getting a lot more expensive.
Like,
but again,
that's
we
one
don't
of
have
those
the
things that I
infrastructure.
think that's one of those things.
It'd be great if we mined our own rare earth metals. I'm not going to lie. We don't have that right now. It takes time to do that.
There's 4 mines that are currently just inactive. So, but yeah, it takes time to even build those back up.
Yeah, even inactive. That is a better place than I thought we were in. I guess because we're also here, but still, yeah, it takes time to put them back online.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So it's like, but yeah, in reality, it's just not cost effective, and those groups didn't make money. And like, I mean, they might now, but at the same time, you know, when everyone else is losing money because everything's through the roof, it actually isn't probably going to help, because at this point it's just, okay, well now everything's just going to cost triple. And at that point, since everything costs triple, you might as well just plan for triple costs.
Yeah, it's a mess. And so, again, we're going to see fallout, especially like these things, because they're probably a smaller subsidiary business of a larger group. But they are a small business that's connected to them, you know.
Well, and that's the thing. This is going to hurt small businesses more than anyone else. Because small businesses tend to have the tightest margins. Small businesses tend to do the most, have to save costs in those ways. There are, small businesses that are exclusive, that, cater to a single country. But even they have, like, coffee. Coffee is not grown in America.
No. There's a few other things. I think, like, bananas, which were very cheap. They're not grown in America.
Yeah, so...
I'm sorry. I think, technically speaking, there is, like, one coffee farm in Hawaii. Or something like that, or a couple.
True. There are some coffee and banana farms in Hawaii. However... Yes.
They're not going to supply the entire United States.
No, especially not with the amount. I mean, you have banana plantations literally all over Middle and South America. So it's just...
I feel bad for these
we're gonna
people.
see
Yeah.
I don't know what to say other than, like, I hope this kind of I don't know.
The other thing that I got one more thing on this one, and I'll put this up here and we can continue the conversation, is because apparently this is also because of the tariff situation. There are people that aren't shipping across the seas because they can't, because there's uncertainty about it, stuff like too. And, from both ends. And so Gloomhaven 2nd Edition, which I don't think we've talked about. We may have talked about Gloomhaven some point in time. But apparently they have material, $1.2 million worth of product that's stuck because no one knows how it's going to end up with the tariffs. Because of the flip-flopping too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, people don't want to... like, that's the thing. It's like, we've been looking... like, my company's been looking into alternate ways to ship stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just saw in this article, at time of this press, the current tariffs on China are sitting at 245%. Holy...
It's been in, like, the last 2 days.
What the hell?
April 17th. Oh, yeah, that was 2 days ago. Literally, I checked. The last time I checked was Tuesday. It was 145.
And now by Thursday, it's hit 245%. Oh, and apparently, about the time that the company Cephalare was making this product, the tariff rate was 0. Holy crap! That's a jump. They were a product that wasn't in the tariff, it being tariffed, because it wasn't important enough to tariff. Board games. But now it's 245%.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fucking mess.
4 days ago it was put up the... it says up to a 245%.
I assume there are certain products that still have less stuff into, because there are exceptions, like we were talking about the role-playing books that theoretically, like printed material is an exception and stuff like that too. And I think certain items do end up on the exception lists occasionally. I just don't know the exception list that exists, so I don't know where the exceptions are for anything.
But basically what's going on is, like, China, and, like, honestly, I think China is, like, in a way responding appropriately by being like, okay, well, if you want to if you want to charge us a bunch to ship to you, then how about we just make it expensive for you to ship to us? And that's what caused the issue. Is originally it was like 85, I think, and then China was like, okay, well then we'll do a reciprocal tariff, and then Trump was like, well, we'll do 100, and they're like, okay, we'll just increase yours. But China doesn't need very much from America.
Well, the thing is,
America
I think the thing
needs
is
more from China.
I think the thing is we already know that after they did this, they're like, oh, okay, hey Europe, do you want to make a deal to trade some stuff? Great.
Yeah, they did that as well. Yeah.
They just went to someone else. We are not the only market, and I think that's the problem with these.
What America, that's the problem. Is America, when it comes to China, is acting like we're the only one. Like I totally understand the idea to try and push certain markets in America back to America, but the way we're going about it is destroying the American market in an attempt to punish China without actually punishing China.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
We'll just have to see how things go. They just have so
many other places to go. Like
I love small tabletop groups. They always come up with really interesting games and stuff like that. And it would be a shame if this kind of stifles the renaissance we've been enjoying for possibly the last 2 decades. Basically, again, I think saying when we got the Euro games, when we got Catan and a lot of those games coming in from Europe. That kind of caused the renaissance that we've been seeing, at least in the board game industry, certainly speaking, when we used to be just Sorry, Monopoly, Chutes and Ladders, with an occasional very interesting game that was a little bit more niche. It felt like things blew up a lot, and I would love for us not to be stifled in this amazing, where we've been here by this. I like the little, when as much as it's a stressful thing and kind of tiring to go to, PAX Unplugged, I like that I can see, 20 or 30 small companies that create really interesting games. And, it kind of makes me just sad.
Fun fact, Chutes and Ladders is actually an Indian game.
That's really awesome. I'm sure it's completely different in its in the native country.
So it was originally called Snakes and Ladders, but when America adapted it and made it...
I think I've seen a copy of the Snakes and Ladders, that they're one of the early prototypes, or one of the early versions was still Snakes and Ladders, where they turned into shoots and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I thought it was just too,
not friendly
violent,
enough,
or not friendly to kids, or something. I don't know. Yeah, that whole kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, sure.
Our last topic today. Just because it was a kind of quiet week, I thought this one was still interesting. So I thought, hey, you know what? We'll talk about a little bit more Shadowrun. Just because I like Shadowrun, and again, with a little bit of a quieter week, it's an interesting topic. Though again, if it was a busier week, I might have skipped it. But we're getting a book that's getting a lot more plot stuff, and I think this is good. The meta plot in 6th edition is being pushed forward. They did this a little bit with their last book of Lethal Harvest, but apparently this one here, Margin Call, is dealing with the after effects with that and talking about that. So I like that they're putting their meta-narrative forward. Normally speaking, in a lot of these games, usually they present the meta-narrative at the beginning of it. A lot of times, for Shadowrun Pathfinder, yeah, you get updates here and there, but the major things kind of comes up with when they put out the core books. They're like, here's the story that's going on. Once a book is published, they kind of use it, maybe revisit it. Same with a lot of things a lot of D&D ones, like Forgotten Realms and stuff. They paint a picture of it, and they usually don't need to revisit a lot of things unless a lot of time passes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And
usually those are one area. These are more big meta narrative of stuff going on, like the AAA megacorps in which infect the entire world. It's a much bigger narrative, plot ones,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the one thing about D&D that is, like you said, Forgotten Realms, and my brain was just I mean, they have some things that happen, but then they also just retcon things without any, rhyme or reason, and then add new things.
Yeah, I feel like they do some kind of weird shake-up at every edition. There's weird apocalyptic things that have happened at every edition for Forgotten Realms. That's just supposed to be we're doing things a little differently now. This thing happened that's caused this. Don't worry about it. Oh, the gods are walking the earth for a while, or Toril for a while. some bunch of things happened. Some of them died, some of them lived. There's a new one of this one. Okay, great, there's some times of troubles. There's, there's all this crap that happens, Magic's inverted. This plane merged with our own. Now it's unmerged,
Yeah, I mean, they try some things, but I feel like it was kind of a... that was the thing. In 4E, it was like, the merged planes or whatever, but that was also, like, supposed to be, like, post-apocalyptic, but then they just reverted it, so it's like... it's not like it unmerged, it's just... we're gonna go back in time. Before all this happened.
Yeah. I think that's a point in time where we kind of say, like, the idea of a meta-narrative in the story in the world, especially the overall world, I feel like that's done poorly. Like, at very least in a lot of other settings, I think, like, I can say for Shadowrun, I can say for Pathfinder. World of Darkness, it's one of those things that I feel like 5th edition is a very mixed bag, and I really have to, like, go on a rant about it at one point in time, just my thoughts and feelings about it, because, like, if I just took Vampire from 5th edition, I would say, yes, it was an evolution of the meta-narrative that I think was very interesting, and stuck with it. Hunter was just probably the same, but now that they've done, like, a completely different thing for Werewolf 5th edition, I don't know what they're doing now. So, it feels like that's more retconning at this point in time for them.
And that was what was weird to me, is it's like, in my experience was mostly with the Onyx Path publishing version, which they just kind of took it and just made their own new thing that had the same similar themes, but was just different in its, like, and just had a different storyline, which I actually liked,
Here's the fun thing about that, though. It was before Onyx Path that came about. White Wolf tried that out, shot themselves in the foot. That's one of the reasons why we got the 20th anniversary stuff, and also at the same time the Chronicles of Darkness stuff, because White Wolf attempted just to switch completely to the Chronicles. It flopped then, and then basically both the systems died in a lot of ways. And then Onyx Path picked up the pieces of both of them and were like, we can fix this. And they did, and after fixing it, they were thrown to the curve, at least when it came to the core World of Darkness. They still have Chronicles, and still do some Chronicles things occasionally, but very rare now.
They're now focusing on some of their own stuff.
Yeah. Which is good, but I really love a lot of the stuff they did. So
I wanted them to do a Changing Breeds, which is basically the werewolf extension. The problem is that but they never did a 2nd edition Changing Breeds, and the 1st edition is meh.
Yeah.
Or the first Chronicles of Darkness edition.
Yeah. So it's like it's just an interesting place for that kind of one there. And I feel like, the 5th edition, I was on board until Werewolf. Like, I didn't always like everything, and I didn't always like the direction they went mechanically, but I was still on board until, like, I've been reading up more and more on the lore and mechanics of the Werewolf one. I feel like I don't know what direction they're taking with it. So if they do more of them, I don't trust that they're going to do more good with this, And, because again, like, Vampire, I don't always agree with stuff they chose story-wise, but I feel like it still respected all the source material. Same with Hunter. I think, like, there were hunters that were not, like, the imbued, and focusing on them is not a bad idea for Hunter the Reckoning. You can kind of still be this pseudo-imbued guy if you really want to. It's like kind of like they're still there, but the majority of the ones they're focusing on are the regular people, and I thought that was perfectly fine, because they existed also. It was a different focus, but I thought it was fine. This is just, I don't know what's going on. But again, like, that's an example that I have to kind of compare to, like, the weird stuff in D&D, but, like, I think Catalyst Games has done a pretty good job of doing interesting things with the Shadowrun meta-narrative as a whole, and I think, a lot of interesting storylines about what's going on. So I kind of trust that these couple of books that have been pushing that forward are good. I can trust that they're, they've had it for a couple of editions now and done a good job with it. So thumbs up. If you're interested in the overall, like, world and story of Shadowrun, sometimes some people are. Some people might just like be like, I'm hanging out in Seattle and doing some runs. Awesome. The world as a whole might not matter to you if you play, even if sometimes you're playing Shadowrun, even though it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. It got us off a little tangent, so that. And maybe that'll be a good topic for a big topic in later weeks, meta narrative. Because that's an interesting one too. All right, shall we hit our deeper discussion topic, which I was saying was alternate dungeons.
Yes.
I can think of 2 types of alternate dungeons that I'll list. And the 2 that I'm going to list are similar to each other. I'm going to say 2 because they replace... Because the thing is, an alternate dungeon replaces a dungeon. Now, they are different. First off is the card-based system. I haven't experimented with the card-based system, but basically you kind of like draw cards, which help determine stuff. Players make choices based on that. They sometimes still have to roll die. You still might fight monsters, find treasure, etc. like that. And there's like a certain kind of like either number of cards or successful things that you have to do to reach a success, basically.
I'm gonna say one thing: cards and Foundry, at least its base system, absolute trash.
Okay, I'm glad I didn't try to use any of those things.
Roll20 is way better for that. Yeah, because like you have to like everything is like its own little separate window, and that's what's like hard about it.
If you had watched on Wednesday, I was trying to do something similar with skill and skill checks and die rolls.
Yeah, more commonly known as a skill challenge. You were doing a skill challenge version of a maze.
Yeah, a skill challenge version of a dungeon, because you can do that. Like you can you can turn a dungeon skill. Now I do think like before next Wednesday, I'm gonna try to refine it a little bit more and fix it up a little bit, because I definitely was sensing there were some issues the way I presented it, and maybe add some more interesting like random elements and stuff too. But that's a different discussion, perhaps. But I think there are other versions of stuff that function as alternate dungeons you can take. That these are, you're not like on a map walking around doing a dungeon. And this works for like also like honestly theater of the mind, because usually theater of the mind, the person running the game has an idea of the dungeon or a map. So that one, we're not talking the traditional. Yeah. I go into an area, I walk around, maybe fight something, maybe find some treasure, get to a goal.
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
I was about to say, so if we're looking into the versions, there's, I would argue, the card, especially for mazes, especially, there's the card-based system. I haven't seen card-based systems for other things other than mazes, but they might exist. Then you obviously have skill challenges, which can be a dungeon or can just be an event. I think it's usually, it's just basically a series of. The way you're doing it is more of a skill challenge mini game rather than like a skill challenge like scenario.
Yeah.
Which is where you have to make decisions, because it's more of like a way to figure out how to go about it. But as far as it goes for the but then there's 2 more that I think are interesting. One is a hex crawl. You can do that as a dungeon.
Okay. All right. I can see that. Interesting.
Yeah, that would be like a big dungeon. Like, I mean, effectively, if you think about it, like, it's usually more of a precursor to dungeons, though. But you can do it as a dungeon. I've heard of it done as a dungeon.
Okay.
It's usually like your wilderness survival aspect before you get into a dungeon. And then you traveling to a dungeon or something usually is when you do that.
Yeah.
The other one, which I feel like is a bit less well known, is a point crawl. Have you heard of this?
A point crawl? I don't think I have.
Okay. Yeah. So, point crawl is where there's a bunch of different points, and these points you can travel from point to point. But and so you can get around that way. So it's almost like connected rooms of a dungeon, but you focus more on the individual rooms and not anything in between.
Okay, so it's sort of like I understand. It's you arrive in a room, you kind of like do the stuff in that room, and then you basically like you would just basically kind of gloss over the in between, maybe just do a simple narration, and then you're at the next point. So the object is to like go from point to point, you know.
Yeah, it's more about the let me do this.
And the counters of those points.
Yeah.
I do see where that's going with that. I do.
Yeah, here's an example of one I just found online real fast. You know, you have the different points, and the points are you know, like you have a tower. It's like, you know, you can kind of see on the map, you know, there's the top, and there's like the side tower, then there's, you know, like there's the fishing house on the side, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's a point crawl, and that's why, like, when you mentioned alternate dungeons, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hit him with this one because I know this is one most people don't think of or hear of.
This seems, again, like, this one is one that I definitely haven't really looked into, but I think I have heard of it before, but it's sort of like one of those ones in passing. Like, the name was not familiar, but, like, you describing it, I'm like, I think I heard about something about this, like, really long time ago, you know, like, and again, it's like one of those things that's, like, being just an inverted string hanging around, you do pick up stuff occasionally. But, it does seem very interesting, though, as a functionary trying to play the game.
Yeah, and usually, like, the whole idea of it is that it's, like, not necessarily linear. Like, it's that's the thing about it that's interesting, is that it's, like, not linear.
Okay.
Like if it was just linear, then it wouldn't quite be a point crawl.
Okay. So it's more like you're going from, like, you start the first point, and then you kind of, like, have to determine which point they're going to next. And you have all these points, and it might be like you're going from A to G, but the order after A will kind of be random.
Well, so the idea of the point crawl, let me find because like this one you can see, and this one's not, like, super great. Here, here's a better one.
Because I guess I can't get the full details on the detail.
Yeah, okay. Here's a... Let's see. What's going on?
Working now? Yeah, okay. Things restarted for a second. I think I would... okay, look in here.
Yeah, like, just a complicated one. Where it's like, okay, well, here's this whole area, these connect, but then you can go this way or up to here. And it's a lot more complicated. Like, some of them can get really crazy.
So, yeah, this is like, you're almost like, kind of like a mapped out dungeon, but the map doesn't matter as much, the points matter.
Yes.
Because, like, easily speaking, you can just make corridors between those things and call it a dungeon. It would be a little weird-looking dungeon.
Yeah. Usually where these come into place the most are not internal dungeons, but external dungeons.
Ooh.
Where there's, like, let's say it's a mansion with several side houses, and they have paths in between, and so, like, where you go is not necessarily linear, but, like, each point has interesting stuff. But to put it all on one big map would be, you know, convoluted. You know.
Yes. Well, that makes sense then. That's kind of like it eases out a complex system into something easier. That's runnable. That makes sense.
Yeah, I could even bring up one that I was working on but ended up not using because it was I ended the game. It was going to be what you guys were going to explore for the Traveler game that I was running. You guys were going to go into, like, an underground city, and there was going to be a point crawl map. And so, like, you would have had to figure out how to get down from the different points. And and that's the other thing. Oftentimes, you don't know what other, like, as a player, you only see where you can go from your single point.
Yes. So it does help that they don't plan out the big thing. Because sort of like, rather than usually having like a large area and a map. Like even if you have like a map that you have like using vision on like Roll20 or Foundry that has things hidden, still nonetheless, getting an idea of the size of the map and your location at it can give you an idea of things. This takes that step back, that you have like even less like external knowledge in a way too.
Yeah.
Which actually I think could be very good for
yeah, I mean, because if you want, like, the point can, like, wrap around this way because you rounded a space on the top, but players don't know that. They think they're at the top of the map, but in reality, it snakes back around and goes up, and it goes even higher, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, it kind of takes away, it's a little bit more disorienting for how big it is as well.
Yeah. So I can see there being some very interesting uses for it.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring that one up because it's one that I don't hear of, and I think is very underrated, but has some that is very useful in certain ways.
You're not wrong. I as soon as I'm like hearing about your striping, I'm like, oh, I can see uses for that. You know, it's sort of like it definitely stands out there for me as one that feels.
I also think it's a really great middle ground between theater of the mind and a fully mapped out dungeon.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one I wanted to bring up for alternate maps. Yeah, so but like for our alternate dungeons.
Yeah. So
have I thought of other ones? Have I heard of other ones? I don't remember, but those are the ones.
The thing is the three that we've kind of hit upon feel like they're the most common ones you see for alternate dungeons. Certainly speaking, you know, like skill challenge dungeons, the card one I've seen in a few different places. Or versions of the card one, and then like the one you brought up now, like I can see that as being a very big one. I'm sure there are other alternates, but the point of this is like sometimes they're easier than the dungeon you're going to make. Like, you know, I think we talked about dungeons. Dungeons could be a lot of different sizes. You could have, you know, a 5-room dungeon. You could have a 20-room dungeon. The thing is, more rooms you have, more complex it has. A lot of times there's less interesting stuff, or it's too long and too difficult. So I think like things like this where you're talking about, it can also make things like the point crawl, it can have 20 different points, but because it's kind of in this kind of like nebulous zone, they're not all this weird interconnected thing, and you're kind of exploring different areas that might lead to different goals that they don't necessarily have to hit all those 20 different points, you know, where like...
And that's the thing, sometimes like one of those directions may be a secret room that the players failed to check for, so they have to find another way around.
And here's another thing. When you present players with a physical map and put it in front of it, they want to explore everything.
Yeah.
They always want to explore everything. Everybody loves just checking things out and exploring. They're like, ooh, what's over there? I'm going to go over there. Or how many times has it been like, you're in a dungeon, you're like, well, we should probably finish exploring this entire area before we go downstairs. You know, is it necessary? No. But there's just something in players' brains that, like, you want to explore everything before you, like, change things. I think it's, like, we do that in video games, too, I'm pretty sure. Where you're just like, oh, hey, I'm going to explore everything before moving on.
So I wanted to point that one out, just because I felt it was an interesting showcase when you brought up the topic. I'm like, oh, I know I have to bring this up.
No, you're right. It was definitely a interesting one to add to the mix.
Yeah.
Allow me to speak English.
Yeah, but as far as it goes, they all have their specific uses. Like card dungeons generally do best as maze or a type of procedurally generated dungeon.
Yeah.
Like I could see a way of doing it where it's like, okay, well, you draw where you go and you're trying to get to your destination, and you can do things to try and, you know, manipulate the deck to get.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you know, you have to, you know, so.
Yeah.
But it's like your goal is to get there without wasting all your resources fighting every monster along the way.
I think skill challenges are a little bit of the similar, like skill challenges as a dungeon.
Skill challenges as a dungeon kind of mix skill challenges as a scenario and the maze idea. And like a card maze idea. It's like in between.
It's a little in between. I definitely think like if you wanted really a larger maze, maybe the card type thing would be a little bit better for that one. And, you know, for those like very non-linear dungeons or very spread out dungeons or just, very easily things that are a little bit more malleable. It sounds like the point system is a little better that way. As you said, a bunch of different buildings on a estate, which you can kind of explore each of those buildings, being kind of like networked off on these different points and kind of figuring out how, they're connected that way. You don't have to have these kind of maps.
Yeah.
And again, you have that map of where the points lead, and it's so much easier for you because you don't have to figure out how they're mapped together, connect together, and stuff like that. And then it becomes that anything else is either redundant or not important, enough to mention it in their entire thing. It again comes down to that thing of if you give players an option to explore something, they really like doing it. They really do it too much sometimes.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. I just want to show this off because I finally figured out where I put it.
Ooh, okay.
This, I'm not sure it was finished, is the thing I was going to make. Oh wow, that is gigantic. For you, that I made for you guys, and this is a lot of work.
Wow.
Yep. It's
I feel
obviously
bad
not
that we
finished.
didn't end up using it. Yeah.
Right?
Like,
you see what I was...
Look, I'm not gonna lie.
It was a whole city with multiple layers that were underground.
I was having a fine time as a regular dude who lost his lifetime job and then got recruited by a bunch of weirdos.
Yep.
Because that was my character. I was some guy that had this job for all his life and he's just lost it. He's like, what do I do now? I just know how to pilot things. Oh, I guess I can help you guys out. Cool. I guess we're stopping terrorists or something now. That's neat. Can I just fly a ship? I get paid for it again? Awesome.
Here we go. Here's a more finished version that I made that was more just, I wanted to update it to the isometric view, but I technically had this if I was going to run it. But this is 2B something. The other way was going to connect them directly as well. So, yeah.
I like my character. I don't remember what he's called.
I could look it up for you, eventually.
I think I have his character sheet in my character archive in Roll20 somewhere. Just in case.
Service area.
I probably would have to make a travel game in order to see the character sheet at this point in time. Because I think that's what you have to do for the archive things. But
no, you just have to reload it.
But some of those times, those games get archived on their own too.
They do, games... but they're stored on the site. But you have to request a reload, and it will do it for you. It only takes a minute or two.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah. So
it's so interesting.
Yeah.
I try to this being as a weird outside thing. I tried to quickly Google it, and it came up with alternate dungeon types like caves, labyrinths, spaceships, underground, stuff like that, or alternate games to D&D. This kind of topic, hard to look up. I'm sure I can figure out a way to phrase it to look up more of them, but and again, I'm sure there are other types outside of ones we're talking about here. Because again, it's one of those ones that doing a dungeon crawl / exploration in interesting and different ways is always something that people try to present a lot of times. Because look at when we did I can't even remember its name in Crimson Queen, big old castle. Our big old mega dungeon, which just was too much.
Scarwall?
Scarwall. Yeah. I gotta be honest. Doing that in alternate dungeon type may have been better in a lot of ways.
I'm gonna be 100% honest. Doing that as a point crawl probably would have been 100 times better. Because we would have just hit the important part. It's literally the whole problem with that map is there's just so much filler. Annoying filler. And a point crawl would have just gotten rid of that. I
think that's definitely one of those things a lot of times where you see with maps are oftentimes built in such a way that make them like very nice and feel like actual places to a degree. But the problem with that sometimes is it results in a lot of filler that you characters can kind of explore, but there's nothing there then. It's just
In some cases, that's okay, as long as it's minimal. The problem with Scarwall is it had so much story to tell, and so many ways to tell it, and so much space to tell it, and it did none of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was too much. And I think that's what kind of comes into that one. You can get overwhelmed by that entire thing. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Anything else you think on this kind of one? We've kind of talked about it. I think the idea is out there talking about it for anybody listening is we are suggesting consider them sometimes before you do a dungeon.
Oh, I think it's important to have a bunch of tools in your toolbox because I feel like they all have different uses. Like the whole thing about the card maze is it feels random. And that's actually what's nice about it for a maze scenario is that you feel like you don't know where you're going because what you pull next is random.
I think that's the kind of thing I want to add to the skill challenge is a little bit more of that random element, but I haven't figured out a way to do it. I was thinking about that, and I'm like, I feel like one thing I have to lower some PCs. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Like I said, it basically depends on like what you currently have implies that will probably succeed about 60% of the time. Succeed about 40% of the time, which means like if you have like a creature that happens every 2 or a trap that happens every 2, we're expected to hit like monsters like 1 out of every like 2.5 rolls,
Yeah, which is like I think what it is the problem rate is higher than I would like it to be by a little.
Yeah.
So I think I gotta tweak it and probably like drop. I also think like I should switch around some of the things and stuff like that. I'll look at it and kind of figure it out. I can sort of sit down tomorrow and play around with it a little bit, and maybe if I need some advice, I can ask people for it to do this. Because again, this is something like I was thinking about just putting together or finding like a quick maze somewhere, and I was like, I'll do something like this, and this was Tuesday, and so I really spent like day and a half putting this together. So, it was an idea I had, and I wanted to do it, and I don't think it was terrible. I just think it needs some tweaking, and we can continue that tweaking after that battle. And I think that's also one thing, too, is if you are using a system, you can always tweak it as you need to, especially with a lot of these more open-ended systems, like the card systems. If you have, like, a measure for success, go subtract a little bit from it. Or add certain things that are more successful, things like that. Same with, like, the point ones. Maybe you don't want them to explore a certain area that had some, like, rooms planned out for. You can pull them off of that point, like, system. Or, like, make skill difficulty, as I'm talking about, less difficult, or things like that, you can tweak things as appropriate. So, yeah. So, alternate dungeons. Recommend using them.
I do think the generic dungeon is one of the best options for most content.
Yep.
But the other ones just have a lot of uses that I feel like are not, and they should be more well known as a tool.
Yeah, especially just if you want something very simple, just like 5 to 10 rooms to explore, go do that. Just go do that. It'll be fine. You'll have a good time. You can put together something simple as a dungeon or something like that. And it's 99% of the time just a normal dungeon. However form it takes, is fine. It's just like, you aren't going to always want to do that. There's times you want to do something different, and, that's kind of where we're at with it.
Yeah. I mean, we could have gone a little, like, the only thing I can think of to expand on this is just to go into more detail of, like, how to do them, but... I don't know. I think we can probably focus on them individually at another time and talk about them. Like if we wanted to talk about how to do card-based systems, talk about how to do a point crawl, talk about how to do skill challenges. Those can be their own topics.
Yeah. I think that's probably a good idea to grab those as the uncommons at some point.
Yeah. How to do a hex crawl, that's the fourth one.
I'll put these on the list. Crawl, hex crawl, card dungeon, card labyrinth, we'll call it. And then, of course, skill, we'll call it skill labyrinths, too.
Yeah, skill labyrinths, skill dungeons, skill challenges, those are all kind of the same thing.
Hey, look, I've added 5 topics to our deeper discussions today. A bunch of getting in these a little on their own, and then also, the meta-narrative one we were talking about earlier. So,
yeah.
Hey, sometimes we get inspired by, like, oh, we can do these more in-depth in different ways. And shall we discuss our week this week?
Yeah. We had Joe on Sunday.
We did have Joe on Sunday, and this was... We were...
We went to Airland.
It took us a while to figure out where we were going. I thought we had said air, but maybe we said something. Maybe Joe thought we said air, and so I don't remember. Like, I gotta be honest.
Funny, I mean, like, Ewan didn't say anything, but
for me
and
I remember the discussion.
6.
I did not remember what the result of the discussion was.
Yeah,
that was me. I'm like, I remember we were talking about this. What did we say at the end?
I think we are... See, that's the thing. We were deciding between air and earth, but we decided earth because we were worried about running into the other people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were thinking air would be the easiest, but the main reason we decided earth. But at the same time, Ewan didn't remember. You seemed to think air, but also didn't remember. But Six and I both thought we said earth, so...
Like, it was one of those things, is like, when Joe said, I thought you said air, and I'm like, we could have said that! I'm like, that sounds like something we could have said. Do I remember what we said? I thought we were talking about doing an easier one first, and then the more difficult ones. But, again, then, I don't remember 100%. So... Oops.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we went to air. We can kind of float around. We can't really rest while we're in the air because it sucks and it's air. And then we found some islands. We bought some hippogriffs, and
we forgot that we ran into a sphinx.
We did run into a sphinx and answer some riddles.
Wonder Sphinx, which is a little tiny sphinx, like a cat.
We talked about running into Sphinx too. That they were around.
There's another. Yeah, we ran into 2 sphinxes technically, but the first one we ran into was a little tiny Wonder Sphinx who just pointed us in the direction we wanted to go.
Yeah. And then we ended up. Did we end up at the second island area that we were trying to get to?
Well, yeah. Then we got to an island with the giant who sold us hippogriffs, and then we had a choice to skirt around or go through a dragon's territory. We decided to go around.
Yeah, that's right.
And that gave us some levels of exhaustion because, like, we had to go for longer between islands, till rest.
We had to push ourselves.
Yeah. But when we finally arrived at the Castle Borealis, that's what it was called.
That's what it was called. I was trying to remember the name of it. I'm like, what the hell was the name of the place we were trying to get to? Because again, like, we went to the first island not because it was directly towards Borealis, but because we were like, hey, we really can't rest while in the air. We really have to, like, land somewhere so we can get some rest or something like that.
Yeah, and we couldn't travel far, and because the land was so rare, we couldn't travel fast enough without killing ourselves, basically. Yeah,
that's why we like got to the first island. I think we were originally just planning on island hopping, but then we were like, oh hey, we can recruit these flying creatures that can take us there quicker.
Well, the Wonder Sphinx, which basically means the GM recommended we pick up these hippogriffs.
Yes. Thanks, GM.
Yeah.
I mean, Wonder Sphinx.
Yeah. So we ran into a sphinx. They taught us, or we had to give some riddles. One of them was pretty hard. But one of them I literally got before he even finished saying it. Like, I said it immediately. But it was a pretty common one. It was all like, you know, it was fire. It was like, you know, always eating, never hungry, and it was like, oh, that's fire. Like, I don't remember the other lines, but it was like that one.
Yeah. You're a little too quick there. But I was fine with it, because, you know.
I thought it was funny.
I like riddles and things like that, but I'm always so bad with riddles and puzzles, you know. I always have to look up a riddle and hope the best then, you know, that's... Because then you want it to be solvable, but not too difficult, and it's like one of those things is also like... I always feel weird about riddles, because like, it ends up being more player knowledge than character sometimes.
Well, yes. I think there's a good... something I want to do at some point with riddles is to basically just make it as, like, in a way, a test about players actually paying attention to the lore. like, you know, the riddle is about how the magic works, and it's like, if you like, have not been paying attention to how the magic works, you know, then, but, you know.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I think that was a pretty good adventure. So that was Sunday. So that's kind of interesting we were there at that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then we found out the dragon attacked, and we're gonna probably promise to go fight the dragon in order to get access to going home, and also potentially get access to a dying elemental, we can steal their last breath.
Yeah. Wasn't it also that, like, I'm just like thinking about here for a second, and I thought about it. Is this really like the last arc of our story? Because like we go to the plains, we do the thing, we stop them, or is there like another step in there that I'm forgetting?
I think this is the second to last arc, if I had to guess. Because right now we're doing the plains, and after we do the plains, then I think there's going to be the actual like stopping of the people, or gathering of the final pieces, or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Because there's still one piece that is completely unknown, so that still has to be resolved as well.
It's one of those things. Is like I do like Joe's game, but I think like I'm not gonna lie. As much as the 2 weeks works very well for Joe, my brain forgets so much in between weeks, and I try to put down notes, but I'm not a big like 100% note taker. So there just ends up being like these weird holes in my brain about like, you know, what's going on sometimes.
Yeah.
I think this is on me with my memory though too. I'm not as good as a 2 week person when it comes to this.
Yeah.
You know? I think it's just what it is. I think it just suffers that way a little bit, and I do feel bad that it's just like, yeah, I don't know what's going on sometimes. Alright,
I'm glad I can remind you halfway through the week what happens.
That's so nice, because then I'm like, oh yeah! Because I remembered, like, portions of this, and see, the thing is, I remember we were going to go fight the dragon at the end, but I forgot that we'd already skirted around its territory. And that's why we took the long way around and got exhausted. I was like, because we did get to another place and we were looking, did we find an inn or something when we got to Castle Borealis, or a place we can rest?
Yes. Yeah,
I thought
that's
did.
Basically where we ended in an inn. That's where I got the super spicy thing that gave me.
That's right. You got spicy food. Mm-hmm. Yep. Anyway, I didn't do anything on Tuesday or Monday. Did you do anything Tuesday, Monday?
No.
So we had Fall of Avonswell, where you had a nice dinner with this nice man and his family, with, you know, his just bordering on creepy daughter. You know,
totally normal family. His wife that totally doesn't have any sort of attachment issues, and a daughter who totally is just a normal normal little girl playing with her toys in very normal ways.
And him who's just like probably the person that's like got the who as I believe to describe it. Makes Quasimodo beautiful and puts the Elephant Man to shame for how he's, like, you know, deformed. The poor man, Gregor. I think that's his name? Gregor?
Yep. Yeah, that's his name. I remember this better than you.
I'm just bad with names. I have it down in my notes, so I remember it, because otherwise I forget names.
I mean, I'm really bad with names too, but I also have it in my notes, which is why I remember it.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, maybe there's something there, or maybe it's just a weird red herring, and his very weird family is the reasons why he probably stayed around.
Oh, I think it's a red herring, but I also think that they might have something to do with something, just not like in the bad way, more in the we didn't realize that we saw something kind of way.
Yes. And so you've ended up, basically...
We've followed some tunnels until we finally followed them out of the...
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna tell you this. North was the only way that you could have kept exploring. The other two led out to places you would have just left the tunnels.
Yeah.
Yeah. You chose correctly in the direction to go in, basically.
Well, it was kind of obvious. It's like, there's some interesting landmarks in that direction, and it's like, well, that's GM talk for go that way.
It could have been, but also couldn't have been. I will say that, yes, that again, it is subtle things that on purpose, and it does help you to go different directions. But I also was surprised that you talk about asking Gregor about the tunnels, and you never did ask him about them. I thought you were going to. Grilled him on that.
Did we not?
No.
That was my mistake. I think I just got caught up in asking him about other things and forgot. Because I thought I did. I thought he just said he didn't know anything. But now that you mention it, I'm like, oh, but yeah, maybe we didn't.
No, you did not ask him at all. And I thought about it like, huh, okay. I just don't know if any of the others would have said anything too. But I think it was fine.
Oh yeah, we asked him about the people leaving more.
Yep.
Yeah, that was my bad. I totally meant to. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe we'll be able to ask him later.
Hey, you've got some exploring to do, and afterwards, maybe if you get back and you're safe and sound, you can have a chance to ask him.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I guess I also did not have anything on Tuesdays or Thursdays that was related to tabletop, but I know that you had your earlier Saturday. If that was your next thing, earlier today.
Yeah. Yep. Earlier today. We wrapped up the end of the thing where we cleansed the tree the previous game, and then this game we wrapped up by doing some aftermath stuff. We all got boons for doing it too, and I'm kind of happy with mine. It was a spell that I got a spell that was an opposition school spell, so I now have because I'm an illusionist, meaning I have opposition schools, because I'm an illusion mage. So, that's fun. We then went back kind of the town that Finn, one of the characters, is from. He, we spent another day or two around there. And then we left. Then we did a bunch of bookkeeping and management. We went over and identified a bunch of items that we found and stuff, and then decided on dividing that up a bit. And then we started to make our way, and then after we got that done, we started to make our way towards our next destination, which was Ceres. Which is a the name of a asteroid, but it's also in the asteroid belt of their planet. Anyway, and name doesn't matter. But we started to make our way there, and we got attacked by moths. It was just more. It wasn't like they didn't really attack us. They just started to swarm because it's like, oh, they found our ship and started getting attracted to light. Because they're giant moths. So we had to shoo them away.
I mean, giant moths are always annoying and slightly terrifying. They're giant moths.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we found an asteroid with a ship crashed on it, and one of us decided, hey, we should just mark it and move on. And then the rest of us were all like, no, we should check and see if there's anyone alive. Are you familiar with, what was it called? Let me look up what it's called again.
Okay. The answer is maybe. I can safely give that answer, but maybe.
I don't remember what this thing was called. What was it called? Hold on, I can probably look here. Let me say it here. Oh my gosh, I hate that I'm blanking so hard on this. So it's basically, think of it as basically like a giant mimic, but it's an asteroid.
I do know of them. I can't remember what they're called. Oh, because also, like, I did a lot of reading up on Spelljammer stuff. I'm a big Spelljammer fan of the original.
Yeah.
Cough, cough. Why did you butcher it by the cough, cough? I can't remember what it's called, too.
Yeah, I thought it was like meaty. Let's see, there's meteors. Like a meteor hound. No, like.
Is it Murderoid?
Murderoid! Thank you!
I forgot that's what the hell its name was. Oh my god. Look, I'm not gonna lie. I love second edition things like this because they have such names. They really just they're like, it's a Murderoid.
Yeah. So there's two people on the Murderoid. And they're already being like, hey, if we die, you're gonna get this person gets to be captain next. Because it's something that's meant to fight ships and it's people on it, you know?
That's right, it's the Monstrous Compendium Spelljammer Appendix. I like that one. With the really terrible GIF art on the front and the Neogi. Not gonna lie,
yeah.
They are stylized. The GIF on this book cover does not look very hippo.
Yeah.
God, I forgot. I love this one. That's where the giant space hamster was too, and a bunch of people did. I love these books. Look, I'm not gonna lie. This is stuff that I feel like is missing a lot of times from like 5e and then some other modern like RPGs. You don't have style like this. Yeah, it's called a Murderoid. But it's got style, man.
Yeah.
Let
me find that. It was killing me. And it was like, I think it was one of those things where it's all like, your brain... So there's actually a phenomenon where your brain blocks the information you're trying to find. Yeah, so... Basically, your brain is trying to help sort out... separate out things to get to the information you want, but in some cases it can separate out the information you're looking for. So annoying.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Murderoid. Woo!
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So yeah, that's where we ended. That was our cliffhanger.
Ooh.
The Murderoid came to life and yeah.
It was probably totally going to eat some members of your party. I mean,
hopefully. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny is one of the people, the person who said like we shouldn't go down is actually should just leave. The one person who said we should just leave is actually one of the people who went down to the asteroid. So he's all like, "I told you so."
I told you so. Arg! I'm being devoured.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sounds like a fun time. I like some. I guess was there anything else this week, or was that a place to call it? Yeah. I think that's a...
No, that seems good.
Yeah. All right. I think we can.
Given how long we went for, probably could have started at the normal time, but oh well.
It's fine. Sometimes we're like an hour and a half. Other times we're like hour and 50 minutes. Other times we're like 2 hours. It just depends on the day. You know?
I mean, I think I'd say there's we can go up to 2.5 hours.
Those are usually weeks where we either have huge topics to discuss, or there's probably a lot of news, you know? So it's sort of like this compounding of, like, we went through a whole lot of news, and then we're like, oh, we're going to talk about this topic, and then something that, like, you know, you think would have taken, like, you know, 30 minutes to talk about ends up an hour of us discussing.
Yeah,
like
or we have a whole big discussion about one of the topics and then move on to discussing a topic afterwards.
Yep. Sometimes it happens. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining today. I hope you enjoyed the show and you learned a few things about alternate dungeons and enjoyed the news. So I have to again thank Worm, my co-host for today, who joined me. Why don't you give your shout out while I try to do this correctly in Twitch chat?
I'm DiamondWyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm or at DiamondWyrm on Twitter and Blue Sky. Or Diamond... It's funny. Okay, I need to start memorizing this because it's like DiamondWyrm, like 1987, I think, is my YouTube channel.
The more people you get there, the closer you come to be to cut that number off.
Yeah. Basically.
I'm not gonna lie, that was a nice thing to be like, I technically have a channel that just has a name you can look up.
Yeah. Well,
nice
funny enough, if you look up my name, you will find my YouTube channel. But on like Google, you say DiamondWyrm YouTube, you can find it.
So cool.
Hold on. Oh yeah, no, this is my YouTube channel. Okay. For a second, I was all like, "What is this?" And then I'm like, "Okay, that is my channel." 9234. That's what it is.
I see.
Or you could type in UCTC6UKWAYOXR. No, okay. I'm done. I'm gonna finish it.
Yes. Just yes. Anything else to shout out, or is that a good spot for you?
I'm good.
Okay. Myself, Starfinderr Dracovin. It's going to be up on my channel. Go, if you join us live, cool, great. But always check out these shows. They go up usually on Mondays, up on my channel, my YouTube channel. So make sure to check that out. Always great to catch us live, though. Always great to catch me live doing anything else. I do other recordings of tabletop-related stuff, live plays, Fall of Advent as well, Wednesdays at 8. And I do some gaming with friends, or by myself on various days, too. Check out my schedule. I got a general one that I put up every week. Check out my social medias, link below, in the various places. Do give support if you're over on the YouTube side. Hey, do the little things over there. And, I think that's everything to shout out. And I'll keep people abreast of my schedule and updates over on my social media. So check those out if you want to know what's going on next week. Cool. All right, everybody. I think I will say for now, have a great rest of your Saturdays. Thank you once again for joining us all. And, enjoy some tabletop. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Forever.
Bye.